let's talk about Ukraine. All right. And the Americans have basically told the Ukrainians, yeah, you guys don't really have any sovereignty. It's all bullshit. So it says here that the U.S. has given Ukraine a draft agreement that is similar to the document rejected by Zelensky and has zero chance of being ratified. European Pravda writes, the Verkhovna Rada clarified that it does not contain security guarantees. Yeah, you see, and the Americans don't want to give Ukraine a guarantee for security, at least in the last two drafts that it's proposed. They don't want to give guarantees because Ukraine's a losing card. America right now, this could change in the future, but America right now is in a state of just everybody hating war. So war is not popular. War is not a popular thing right now. So what's America going to do? We're going to put boots on the ground and we're going to fight to the last American for Ukraine. America's not interested in that right now. So it says here that the 58-page document in fine print tries to cover all aspects from handling revenues to voting rules and the bilateral structure being created. The publication writes, it was named the American-Ukrainian Investment Fund for Reconstruction and Development. That's just a way of saying money, 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 money. Kiev will be required to compensate for all aid Washington has provided. Ooh, boy. Ooh, boy, them Ukrainians. They're getting the hard lesson. How it feels like working with the Americans. The Americans, I'm telling you, they will always fuck over their allies. And America had an agreement with the Ukrainians. Back in 1980 something. The Ukrainians said, okay, we're going to get rid of our nuclear weapons. America made a treaty with the Ukrainians that America will be responsible for Ukraine's security. That's what the Americans told the Ukrainians. And what do we see? Well, Ukraine got invaded by Russia. Okay. America said, we're going to help Ukraine. Here's all the weapons, smart rocket launchers. Here's everything, anti-tank stuff, drones, blah, blah. They just threw everything at Ukraine. Here you go, right? So Ukraine's saying, great. This is great. We're getting help from the Americans. America, you are following through with your agreement. This is good. This is good. Now what's America telling the Ukrainians? Pay up. It ain't free. It ain't free. You about to get screwed over. But I thought our security was gonna be done by you guys. I thought you guys were gonna be in charge of Ukraine's security. Nope. Pay up. It ain't free. Oh boy, Ukraine is getting screwed over. So what message does this send to the world? Why work with the Americans when they're just gonna screw you over? That's the message. Now, I'm not in favor for what NATO did with Ukraine. I'm not in favor for NATO provoking Russia and messing around with Russia's backyard. Not in favor of that at all. I'm just making an observation. What message does this send? The message that this sends is that America does not honor treaties, doesn't honor agreements. That's why I keep telling people, Article 5 of the NATO treaty, is it really all what it's made out to be? It says that if one member of NATO is attacked, then that's considered an attack on all members. Well, Ukraine and America made an agreement, and America was supposed to be in charge of Ukraine's security. And now America doesn't even want to make a guarantee for Ukraine's security. America is telling Ukraine, you owe us billions of dollars. Is that really a trustworthy ally? This is why the Japanese are rearming. This is why the Germans are rearming. This is why these countries are rearming, because they can't trust the Americans. That's not the sole reason why, right? That's a reason. And I think this is being used as more of a green light to these countries to pursue rearmament and to pursue massive militarization. There is definitely an ideology underneath it all. I think the Japanese have an ideology of nationalism, and in some cases even things like going back to emperor worship and sun worship. And I think the Germans definitely have an ideology. There's definitely a militaristic ideology, and there's definitely there is some underlying Nazism there. But this is a demonstration that, well, can you really trust the Americans? This forces one to ask that question. Can you really trust the Americans? Let's not forget about the crazy-eyed German, and the Americans want to release the crazy-eyed German. So it says here that Kiev will be required to compensate for all aid Washington has provided since the fighting began. The document notes that the total cost of support will have to be calculated and written down in an appendix to the agreement. It will become the DFC's initial contribution to the fund. The Ukrainian government will be obliged to convert the fund's income into dollars and transfer funds to the American side's accounts upon the first request, with Kiev also compensating for commissions, taxes, and fees. Ooh, this is like getting a loan with interest. I mean, they are just financially raping this country. At the same time, as European Pravda writes, Ukraine is being put on a meter. Every year, the amount of compensation to the U.S. budget will increase by 4%. Oh, man. They really hitting Ukraine with that exploitation. That banker exploitation. You got a loan? It's going to increase every year. Interest rate's going to increase by 4%. In addition, the document assumes that the United States has the right of first consideration for all future investment projects in the sphere of natural resources and in the sphere of infrastructure. In other words, if you're going to make a deal selling your resources, you have to come to us first. And you gotta offer that deal to us, and we'll negotiate with you. And if we don't like the deal, if we're not interested in the deal, then you can make deals with other countries. But any deals you make with other countries, we must first review them. This is not autonomy. This is not independence. This is not liberation for Ukraine. This is enslavement. That's what this is. Ukraine will be able to negotiate with other investors only if American companies are not interested in the proposal. At the same time, Kiev must share the details of these negotiations with Washington and does not have the right to offer better conditions to other investors within a year from the moment of refusal of American investors. I mean, this is complete control. Oy vey, yeah. The new draft also includes a provision that was not in previous versions. Ukraine will be required to add to licenses for companies that will extract critically important minerals a ban on the sale of those minerals to buyers whose principal place of business is in a country that the DFC defines as a strategic competitor of the United States. So if you are a strategic competitor of the United States, you can't be making deals with Ukraine according to this deal. European Pravda notes that most likely the strategic competitor of the United States will be the European Union. Ooh, Ukraine, you can't make deals with the EU. Nope, they're against our interest. It's almost like the Americans want the German Nazis to come back and to hate the Americans like they did in the past. Just a thought. Just a thought. So such an obligation may hinder Ukraine's integration into the EU. The DFC will be authorized to appoint the head of the fund, and the majority of the board will be U.S. representatives. Oh my gosh. So it really is just an American takeover of Ukraine. As previously specified by Verkhovna Rada Deputy Yaroslav Zelezniak, the board will include 5 people, 3 of whom are U.S. representatives with veto power. According to him, the new project covers all of Ukraine's mineral resources, including oil and gas, and its changes or termination are possibly only with Washington's consent. At the same time, the deputy emphasized the document does not contain even a hint of Ukraine's security guarantees. In other words, we want your money, we want your resources, but when it comes to your security, we don't give a damn. In this form, the agreement has 0 chance of ratification, concludes European Pravda. So Ukraine rejected the deal. Of course, they rejected this proposal, so we have yet to see what's going to be proposed in the future. But this is really just a sign of what America is thinking. They want to control Ukraine and take the resources. It's all about money. It's all about resources, business. Has nothing to do with Russian tyranny and totalitarianism. Ukraine received a new version of the resource deal agreement from the United States on March 23rd. It was expected that the parties would sign the previously agreed document on February 28th. However, this did not happen due to a squabble between Trump and Zelensky. Nah, no surprise there. As Zelensky specified, Washington is changing the terms of the deal. The parties have been discussing this matter since February. Yeah, and we have yet to see what's going to happen. I think the United States wants Ukraine to have another election, which means they want Zelensky out. And who knows who's going to replace Zelensky? Whoever does replace Zelensky, I'm going to guess it's going to be a Russian puppet. Sorry, a pro-American puppet. It could be a Russian puppet. It could be both at the same time. But it's definitely going to be someone who will be there for America's interest. It's most likely going to be someone who's going to play both sides, if I had to guess. In order to delay the decline, when there is nothing to squeeze out of the vassals, empire starts cannibalizing itself. Yeah. Like the Byzantines, Russia with Ukraine, China with Taiwan, and America with Greenland. That's a good observation.